Hey, hi. God, I got to take a class on how to start a podcast. Hey, welcome to another amazing, fantastic, and glorious episode of Jeff Has Cool Friends. My name is Jeff May, and you're never going to believe this, but I have a very cool friend that I have brought on to talk to, and then you guys get to hear that. That's how podcasts work. I am joined by one of my favorite comedians, very good friend of mine, and a Canadian, the amazing, the John Hastings. Sean, how you doing, bud?
I'm very good. Hello, all other friends of Jeff. It's me, the friend of Jeff named John. Jeff, how are you doing? I'm so excited to be here on a podcast. I gotta say this: podcast doing is always fun, but the addition of being able to do it on Zoom, so that like literally 4 minutes ago, I was getting out of the shower. It's the great
I got to be honest, the pandemic changed my life for the better.
Yeah.
Because of all the dead people, but also, no, but yeah, I'm like when we started shifting to Zoom and I started investing in like higher quality, like, audio equipment and internet, and like Zoom, like whatever I'm paying for on Zoom or whatever, man, boy, did my guest list open up pretty intensely.
Yeah, like people, when you don't have to leave your house, what you realize, especially if someone was ever a stand-up comedian, they'll talk to you. If you can directly email them, they will go on your podcast. That's that you realize why celebrities need agents and managers. If you get to Ben Affleck, he'll be in your short film. Yeah, I got 20 minutes. Oh,
yeah, man, I'll do that. The funny part about that too is I actually rarely have comedians on my show. This is something really fun because, and I don't know if you've heard of this, 2 comedians on a podcast has been done.
I know it has been done. I'm going to say this is that it was one of those formats that everyone was like, and I remember I've been into podcasts. I remember when it was a rote format in 2011. You remember when people were like, and now it's 2 guys in leather jackets that like may or may not be tilting their politics to the far right. And in those days, it was 2 guys who may or may not have actually really cared about the Phantom Menace, but frig,
it's a lot of opinions on Deep Space Nine. Yeah. Like, oh, 100%. It is funny, like, because I remember back when they were called internet radio shows.
Oh my God. I remember in the 2000s, because I'm such a comedy nerd, I remember when like Greg Proops had an internet radio show that was just on like www.radio.com.
Yeah, radio.org. And you're like, what are you orging for?
Yeah. Are you an organization? We don't know. These are all $11. No one knows what they're doing.
Yeah, the wild west of internet platforming has been, and by the way, like when you think about the people that transitioned, when you think about your Mark Marons and your Jackie Kashians who like started before, maybe even before the word podcast existed, and then they're like, oh, I guess this is actually the name of the thing I do.
It's also interesting that like how people have lasted, B, who lasted, and what's interesting is it's never the top people. Like WTF was a big sort of gateway drug for a lot of people getting into podcasting, especially other comedians. What people don't understand is WTF is just the first 200 episodes of WTF are just a great way to learn how to be a stand-up comedian for free or whatever he's charged. Just listen to those and you're like, okay, I know everything not to do. I will not behave like Mark Maron between the years 1988 and 2008. That's one way to do it. And then
2013, really.
Whoa! Angriest man I've ever seen in Los Angeles is Mark Maron.
But also, like, sometimes the chillest dude I've ever seen in Los Angeles is Mark Maron.
I've also seen that guy at the Comedy Store. Literally, it looks like the Comedy Store is his house, and he's an eccentric billionaire that lets you visit the grounds, and you just see him like he's in like a flannel. He's exactly how he always
always the flannel. I've seen him. I was on a show with him once where he like brought a stool out to sit on.
That's
some baller shit right there.
I mean, what it is this is very funny. Are you ever able to, just because for whatever reason, because you have nerd adjacent interests, which means
nerd adjacent.
You in that you get comedy adjacent nerd interests, which means you like deep dive and may know like the thing behind the thing. In that, like, whenever I watch Mark Maron, I'm always like, man, like, you like Spalding Gray. He's not doing Spalding Gray, but like his vibe is like, if Spalding Gray was a comedian, it would be. If you don't know who Spalding Gray is, he's maybe the most boring baby boomer ever who did these almost so boring talks. They were fascinating in New York, and it's just bizarre. It's one of those things that like looks like there's no like affect at all, and then you realize like, oh no, he rehearsed them for a year, and you're like, oh, that's why it's so tight.
It's something for the NPR crowd. I
Oh
think like
my god,
that's I love one of my favorite things is NPR comedy because it's inherently not funny, but intellectuals need to seem smarter when they laugh. So like they'll think it's the funniest thing on the planet when it's just like a slightly dry pun that's being said on like Prairie Home Companion or something. And you're just like, I don't see why you guys are rolled. I saw Airplane. How am I supposed to think this is funny?
this is the thing is this is the other thing is you can't what people don't understand is like, yeah, I'm all for like the most intelligent humor ever. That said, you've hit it nail on the head. You're not beating the movie Airplane. The movie Airplane is I don't care how old you are. I don't care what is happening in your life. Oh my god, I chose the wrong week to stop sniffing glue. Alone, that is amazing.
I watched that movie relatively recently and I was like, oh yeah, this is the funniest thing that's ever been made.
What's more amazing about that is one of the funniest jokes in it is a topical reference that is so dated, but for some reason, because the whole movie's so insane, you're just like, okay, yeah, I guess the co-pilot is just a Laker, and that's not explained. But in the
But
movie, it's because he's
it,
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You have to understand how funny this is.
but it's also very dated, but he is a legend. So everyone will always get that joke too. Like that's the other part of it is like it would be like having Muhammad Ali in your movie. And you're just like, you're Muhammad Ali. And they're like, oh man, this is gonna be and then it turns out to be one of the like most Hall of Famey people who's ever touched the court.
I completely agree. I think it's better that like Muhammad Ali he transcends the sport.
Mhm.
Abdul Jabbar, you still have to know a touch about basketball. Like, there's people in my family that if you said Kareem Abdul Jabbar, they would say that actor from Airplane. They would not
Yeah.
know.
The guy from Basketball.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Yeah. Wait a minute. Writer on Veronica Mars, Kareem Abdul Jabbar, which is the greatest fact. I learned this yesterday. Did you know Kareem Abdul Jabbar writes mysteries and wrote on Veronica Mars?
I am no. First off, no. Second off, I figure we can end the podcast right now, and people would be like, "This is the most earth-shattering podcast that's ever been released."
Let's just wildly speculate how he got the job. It's not, I'd
Kung
say
Fu.
20%. Oh, you think it's Kung Fu? I think
Just
20%.
Kung Fu his way in. Yeah.
He just showed up and he's like, hey, I'm Kareem Abdul Jabbar. Can I write? And like the head writer was like, I love Tower of Death. Let's do this.
I got to be 100% honest. If somebody of that caliber wanted to do my CW show, I'd be like, well, we're going to get you in the room for a day.
Yeah.
And we're going to get a not insignificant ratings boost for Veronica Mars.
You would watch, you're like, who wrote, hey, this week on Veronica Mars, a mystery penned by the guy who invented the skyhook. And
Yeah.
I want to know what this is like. Like, I assume you'd be watching it going, if it's not centered around basketball, also, I guarantee everyone in that room thought he was a genius.
That would be so funny, though. It was like murder at the Forum, and it's like at a Kings game. And you're like, what the hell?
Yeah. Whoa. Curveball. Yeah. But Kareem is still the one thing you can know it's a Kareem episode because he's always having to participate in the sport and he's always really good. Before we solve this murder, we got to watch that tall gentleman get a goal.
Like 69-year-old Kareem Abdul-Jabbar trying to skate.
Oh, yeah. Just that.
Falling over.
Just one of the weirdly best bald men I've ever seen in my entire life.
So good at being bald.
So good.
Going back to the like the wry sort of like intellectual comedy thing. I remember I was in Albuquerque. I was doing a show, an independent show, and my friend basically had connections to like the local amphitheater or whatever. And he's like, "Hey, Susie Izzard, who was Eddie Izzard at the time, is like, they're performing. I can get us tickets if you want to go." And I was like, "Well, sure. Like, if anything, I can also like drum up, if I meet people there, and I can be like, hey, I'm also doing this, right?" And I went there, and it was like a history class.
Oh, yeah.
With like slightly funny, like the jokes were like and this is not to say that they are not a brilliant comedian, but the hour and change that I saw, I was just like, well, it's kind of boring, right? Like, and I'm looking around and like there were people that were like rolling in the aisles at like a delicate play on words.
So
And I'm like, you're performing right now. Like when people are doing that, I'm like, you are acting. You want everyone to know that you're the smartest person in the world because you get that joke the most.
I totally agree. I also think the problem with Susie's comedy is that they do too many things. They run they run 30 marathons a year.
Right.
They write stand up in too many languages, so it's too broad.
Mhm.
So it can only be about history, and you're totally correct, can only be a thing that is structurally interesting but isn't, there's no soul to it. It's a real shame
Yeah.
because
Well, Dress to Kill is a great special,
my God, machines that lie. Oh
right?
my,
Like,
the other classic bit, isn't it weird when your granddad calls your when your grandma calls your granddad granddad? Wait, he's your granddad too? Is the funniest, like, so just out of nowhere, so good. Yeah, real
not what
treat.
I saw. I
Yeah.
felt like I was like, I felt like, like in like a movie, like a paranoia film, like a Body Snatchers or something like that, when you're like, what's happening around me? Am I missing something? Everybody's weird. Like that was well, first off, in Albuquerque, you always have that vibe.
Oh
So
man.
it's very much amplified there. You ever perform at Albuquerque?
I have not, but no one. So I'm Canadian who lived in the UK, now lives in California. And here's the thing that's crazy about America is everyone who's not from America assumes we know American culture and a lot about America because the culture is exported. And what you realize is you don't know almost anything about the internal dynamics. For example, Arizona and New Mexico they're great, but they are the weirdest places on earth. Like there's just
Yeah.
no one there. There is,
Yeah, they have it's the desert, man.
yeah, like, and not the desert that you imagine, like, oh, like we've built stuff. It's like, no, man, it's the fuck. Like, it's literally, there's nothing there. And anything that is there is being destroyed by the desert.
And meth.
And meth, of course, of course.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, no, it is one of those things too, because like, like I used to perform in Albuquerque a lot, and I used to be like, I feel like Breaking Bad was really nice to this place. Like
I,
I feel like Breaking Bad was very complimentary to the city of Albuquerque. And but honestly, like their comedy scene, their comedy like attendance scene is really good. Their comedy scene is definitely a bit 90s in like I'm like, it seems like a kind of like a little bit of hate speech going on here. And like
oh,
before that was like really big. Like I was there in like, 2015. And I was just like, oh, you guys, that's not the culture war is not for a couple more years. You guys are ahead of the curve.
I was thinking about this in that, like, people are like, oh man, comedy existed. I'm like, all we've done is loop back to what it was when I started. It's just people are now actually listening to people being like, I don't like them and it's bad that they exist. But like, it's the funniest thing of like, no one understands how cyclical culture is.
Yeah.
And also, like, yeah, man, it's comedy. It attracts three types of people that are demanding attention, like just actors, wayward sort of weirdos,
Mhm.
addicts, people with a substance abuse problem because they realize, oh my God, I can get free booze. And then just scumbags. Like that's the thing that no one takes into account. It's like there is some real rats that are like, what? Let's go.
I will add, though, and this is very important, that part one is an umbrella for also parts two and three.
Correct.
There
Oh,
are scumbags. I've seen the pickup trucks, but also the scumbags that demand attention are the ones that are like, what if I gave like a rally speech at an open mic?
it's it's also so funny of I was saying this where it's just some of the guys that I remember doing that in open mics have just parlayed it into becoming journalists. And that is it's so amazing to me where it's like, how did they, like, everyone finds their place. That's something that like an improv teacher told me once about show business, where it's like, if you want to be in it, you'll just find your place. And that's the craziest thing where I'm like, whoa, they found their place and this is horrific.
I think a lot of that has to do with like, if you are relatively good at stand-up comedy, you have to be intelligent, right? You have to be good at words. And like if you're good, well, let me rephrase. If you're good at joke writing, then you need to be intelligent. If you're good at stand-up comedy, you also have to have the ability to have charm while you're doing that. And boy, to some people, did they miss that memo?
Oh my, it's my favorite. That's one of the new things I love in stand-up comedy is people not figuring out why people aren't laughing. And it's like, because you're spitting on the front row, being like, why aren't you laughing, mother? And it's like, well, because you're angry at them. Just give them a second. It's Melrose. People don't know where their
Yeah.
car is right now.
You're in West Hollywood right now.
Yeah, like
I've always like I've had this conversation, but there's a lot of people that look like us, that look like me and you, very, very white men, that don't understand that they need to be the butt of any jokes that are mean spirited.
oh,
Like if you're gonna say a mean spirited joke, you have to be the butt of the joke. Because if you're not, you're just in a position of power, I guess. Like and being like, it's pretty funny, what's the deal with the blacks? And you're like, well, this is, we don't want to.
I was a better comedian the day I figured this out, which is it's inherently funny someone with my face approaches something positively, which sounds
Oh yeah.
crazy, but no one is expecting stepdad principal who's working for the cops to just be like, watermelons are a refreshing way to start the day. And that is such a hard thing to acknowledge when it's your face, but you have to be like, look, you want to be a good comedian? This is the path you take. Like, you know what I mean? You can't be Bill Hicks because no one is excited to see me put on a turtleneck because they're going to be like, oh, he's gone political.
I love when people are like, Bill Hicks, he couldn't do his comedy anymore. And it's like, well, couple things. One, he was kind of an ass. like you guys know that, right? Like social media, you really start to figure out what people are like when they're not performing. And I'm like, I don't know if even you would have wanted that scenario in there. Yeah, I definitely agree. Like we don't have similar jokes, but we both address the fact that I refer to it as resting cop face.
Yeah, you got to
Like
address.
we both look like cops.
Dude,
So you're like,
I was in LA for the whole rise of BLM in 2020, and that was a fascinating thing of just basically my act prepared me for being in society for the first time, because finally I'd walk out and on stage people are like, whoa, this guy looks like a cop. But for the first time in society, people are like, this guy looks like, and I was literally doing bits as banter walking by old Mexican ladies in Koreatown because I could see them on their face like, oh, for sake.
have you ever been called officer during a march? Because I absolutely have.
Oh my God. I have a bit about this in my special available now.
I was about to get to that. How dare you? How dare you skip the line?
This is one of I'm sure you have these bits, which is those bits where it happens in real life and then it's a labor to make it into a bit because you have to like be able to sneak the context and like everything in. So I used to have a green card. I'm now an American citizen, and one of the rules of having a green card is you cannot get arrested. You're not even getting charged. You can't be arrested. If you're arrested, you're immediately deported, which made all of the protest marching around BLM in 2020 a lot more fraught for me because I just like, it's not like people are like, no, this didn't happen. I saw it happen. The police were sweeping the protest lines and just arresting people willy-nilly.
Oh, yeah. And they were kettling too.
They were like, which I bet, by the way, this is how old I am. That when they started being like, we're not kettling, I'm like, oh my God, it's like the late 90s again. Like we're back to this. This is so cute.
I remember I was at a protest and we noticed that they were kettling and I looked around. I'm like, shit's about to get real dark real fast. Oh, and yeah. So I just like walked up like past a cop and he tried stopping me and I was like, get your hands off me. Like, I don't feel like being caught in your kettle. And he's like, we're not kettling. I'm like, then get your hands off me.
Yeah, then why are you stood there?
Yeah. I was like, then stop touching me. And he was like, he like put his hand and I was just like, yeah, that's right. And then I just tweeted, hey, they're kettling cops. And I like tweeted it and that went like weirdly viral. But
it was such that I found those protests so interesting because I hadn't marched in a while. I never marched on anything when I was in the UK, but I used to do it when I was in Toronto. And there was a bunch of things because there was a bunch of people new to protests. They didn't know how to look for cops, which is still a crazy thing to me. I'm like, did none of you go to punk shows? Did none of you drink underage that you don't know don't know the signs for like
how new that Dodgers head is on that white guy.
Yeah, just hey, isn't it weird that at every time there's an intersection, there's two guys on one corner and two guys on the other corner, and they're just leaned there and they're not doing anything. Well, no one actually just stands there, especially in LA in a uniform. And so in 2020, I was literally stood on my roof during that whole weekend where it was just crazy, and this giant protest went down Wilshire where I was living at the time. I was on the phone with my mom and I just went, I'm marching this protest. I don't care. Not considering that I was wearing cut off pajama shorts that were let me put it this way. Not only did they leave nothing to the imagination, they suggested some things that were
Yeah. A
inappropriate.
little bit of the chewing gum visible, yeah.
Oh, more the whole packet, my friend. And then this tight ass pink Hawaiian shirt that's this weird elastic fabric that's so comfortable on a hot day. But I looked like what I literally looked like is they went to Orange County and found a neo-Nazi and then were like, dress like a leftist, don't Google it.
Yeah.
And I literally, because what I did was I ran and joined the protest as it was getting to Wilshire and Normandy. And as soon as I started marching, I could literally feel 20 people around me all took a step, like that half step away, and we're just like cop, 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 cop. And I didn't help myself with that perception because as we started getting up towards MacArthur Park, I started seeing cops on the sides. I suddenly saw a helicopter above, and I was like, "Oh, I know what we're about to do. I can't be arrested." And I literally I just slow faded in the background and stood
Just Homer Simpson back into the bushes.
Back into the hedge, and I literally saw two women literally look back, see me, and like nudge, like look at that, and then look forward and start pointing at the cops. And I was like, "Yes, you're correct," but no, like I didn't know I couldn't scream, be like, "Yeah, they're cops on me," but I was just like, "Yeah, well, that's who my face will be to those people for the rest of my life."
So, couple things. I'm going to read you something that I found on the internet.
I want to read. I want to hear it.
Okay. Over the last 14 years, John Hastings has attended
Yes.
every major comedy festival in the world, including Edinburgh, Melbourne, and the Just for Laughs Montreal. He has told jokes on BBC Radio 4, BBC 1, BBC 3, comedy, which, okay.
The big deal in the UK. I got news for you. They want to know. BBC World Service, I'm not coming to see. BBC 3, BBC 4. Ooh, that's the difference between UPN and the WB in the UK, my friend. Very important.
Very, very, very important. Comedy Central, CTV, Australian Comedy Channel, and CBC, the Comedy Network. He's also the COCA Comedian of the Year, a Martin Sims Award nominee, an Amused Moose Comedy Award winner, and was briefly a viral sensation after Dennis Rodman heckled him in Los Angeles.
100%.
He was most recently spotted on America's Got Talent.
Correct. Yes, that is that's my bio that slightly has been updated by me slowly sending it out to people because I've been doing comedy for 18 years and you can just tell I haven't updated the first part, which is 14 years.
Yes. Because including Edinburgh 2012 to 2019.
Yeah.
All 7 years?
Yeah, no, and then I did it and then the COVID and then I went back 2022, 2023.
So that's like your summers. Is Edinburgh is it summers? Yeah.
Yeah, it's all of August, but it's really your whole summer getting ready. I am not doing it this year. And Jeff, I feel crazy because usually at this time of the year, I'm having crazy stress dreams. The room I'm sat in right now has various lists of jokes. I'm panicking. There's so many Zooms. And I'm like, I made a nice lunch. I helped a friend with some jokes. And then I'm gonna do my 20 minutes of inspirational writing and go for a walk and center myself like a real LA douche.
Wow. Like you didn't even do comedy. You put out one special and all of a sudden
one special of 3 for this year, my man, like a real.
Yeah. So, okay. So here's why fourth wall break. Here's why I want you on the show, because I saw that you had posted a thing about your YouTube special and I was like, I love John. He's done Mint on Card, I think 4 times at this point in time.
I want to shoot a special at that show. It's impossible, but I want to because it's nothing says LA comedy more than it is a unplayable situation. That's one of the best shows in LA.
Nobody should film at Mint on Card, and at least half of all comedians that are booked on the show do. And every time I'm like, I feel like you're wasting battery doing this because I was like, the ceilings are high, the lights are on, you can see the audience. People never sit in the front row, so there's an empty row in your video just to start. I was like, I please don't. And then they always do it. And then I see like their posts, and then a lot of comments are like, where are you?
Yeah.
It's wrong. It's not the right place to do.
I know but there's something about it that I just love because in the moment in that room, the laugh is very explosive and interesting, but it doesn't, what people need to learn, especially in the age of clipage, it's exactly your point. Some places it just doesn't translate from stage online. Like, it's like, no, it's not supposed to. No, so this is just for us, guys. We're just doing this in this room.
I famously rally against real clips. I'm not like, hey, I feel like your guys are actually working comedy pretty bad by doing this, by chasing an algorithm. I feel like I know that why we're doing it, but it's bad. This is a bad idea. Don't do it.
I
But like,
completely you. I do it all the time, but it's in that way of as a former
you got
smoker.
it early though. You started doing this before it was like the hit.
Yeah, I think I started right before. Like it was one of those things where if doing it
Kind
early
of your
was
fault.
British invasion, I'm the Herman's Hermits. Like it was literally like, oh, Hastings do it, now it's bad.
So like, yeah, like that. I'm like Mint on Card. That's my show, and I'm
Mm.
still like, don't
No.
do this. Like, even if it goes viral and promotes the show, I'd rather you not have this quality of video as the video that goes through. I'm like, do it for the culture, for the culture of comedy. Stop doing this, right? But anyway, so I enjoy your comedy and I like you very much. Love having you on the show. So I was like, well, I'm going to watch the special. It's about 34 minutes long. It's on
Mm.
YouTube, and I was fascinated by it for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a 34-minute special, which might be the most insane time length for a special, right? I was like, 34 minutes. That's neat. And then when you were like, and I'm doing several more, I'm like, oh, it's like a whole thing. But it's also interesting because it's, do they call it a patchwork special? Where
I
it's like the theme it reminded me a little bit of that Chris Rock one where he filmed it in 3 different places
for the messenger.
and
Yeah,
then threaded it together.
yeah.
So the theme is constant. Because spoiler alert for a lot of people that don't understand how comedy specials work, you are actually watching 2 to 4
Yeah.
comedy shows where the comedian is wearing the same outfit.
Yeah, it's why the shots of the audience and the shot of the comedians are completely different shots because they if you go to a lot of live tapings before the comedian comes out, literally a warm-up man is going, give me some applause, louder,
Yeah.
louder, and will literally say, give me a fake laugh.
Yeah.
And that's when they're filming those things, and then in the special you'll see the comedian say thing, and then it'll cut to him going
Yeah.
which looks awful every time.
It looks so fake. It's so wonderful. I love every ounce of that, by the way. I love that aspect of it. It's one of those secrets that we're not supposed to tell.
Yeah.
Sort of like how like the time when I had to tell my dad that Storage Wars was fake.
Yeah, that they know like it's the
It's like I'm like some of those things are planted. But
Yeah.
normally I'm like, enjoy your show. I don't
Yeah.
care. Like enjoy it, you know. But then when my dad was like, you only need 10 grand cash to start getting in on these things. And I'm like, Dad, you need to understand that this is fake. Don't do it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like my dad about to try to like sell me on crypto. And I'm just like, before you get into this, my dad's about to tell me about NFTs.
I had to explain to someone today that comedians are lying. Like, the whole Hassan Minaj thing of like
Yeah.
exaggerated the whole thing. And a friend of mine was like, that he's the only one doing that. And I was like, what the f-? I was like, what are you talking about? What?
Yeah.
Chris Rock has jokes about being on the bus. Chris Rock has been a millionaire since the early 90s, sir. What are you talking about?
CB4?
Yeah. He was in that weird parody of To Live and Die in LA with the longest title ever.
Are you talking Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood?
Certainly am. Yes,
That's
I
a
am.
Wayans film. Chris Rock's in that one?
Isn't Chris Rock in that?
Oh, is he? No, I don't know. Cause that's a Wayans flick. And I know they were close with him. So it makes sense. I'm trying to remember.
Because that would have been right around Living Color ending. And he was in the last season of Living Color. So I feel like
he played the cheapskate.
Yes,
he was actually in the last 3 seasons. He would drop in and do little.
I had no idea. Man, Living Color, some of it is aged worse than milk that was in the sun. But my God, for in the moment, such a breath of fresh air. Of you realize, doing sketch comedy with just energy was so foreign in the 90s that you're like, this is revolutionary. They're just excited.
I found a playlist of all of the season 5 episodes. Those are the post Wayans. I think like Marlon might be like, I forget, but it's like the post Wayans run. It is incredible.
Is that like some Jim Carrey, but he's like in
Jim
his
Carrey's still in it? Yeah.
Because he did the whole season, but there's like at a certain point, you're like, he is in one sketch isolated, and you realize he came in bat shot, and then they shot the rest.
And then he has to go shoot the mask. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that season was 1994. But he's actually in it way more than you'd think. But so yeah, regardless. Anyway, so I watched the special and I was curious on a couple reasons, and then I actually got answers accidentally from you before we ever recorded, which was I was like, why 34 minutes, and like talking about like the threading of the stuff in there, which I didn't get, but like, and now I know you're actually doing two more.
Yeah. So the reason why it's 34 minutes is these jokes went together for exactly this amount of time, and we were gonna make it longer. And then I was like, this isn't for a network. This isn't for anyone. The purposes of like, if
Yeah, that's
someone,
on your YouTube, right?
yeah, it's on my YouTube. So I'm like, why? Because I was like, oh, well, and I was like, why does that matter? So no, it'll be 34 minutes because that's what works together with this material. The next one's 30, I think 33 minutes. And then the next one after that is going to probably be 45. But it was, well, these jokes go together. This works together and looks nice flowing with this B-roll. You'd be shocked how bad doing a special that's a bunch of different sets edited together. Weirdly, how flow, I didn't think flow was going to be a factor at all. I just thought we would take the funniest bits from each of the set. And then you realize, like, no, you actually need to have moments where there's a build, it's quiet for a second, because it is jarring transitioning, because people think it's going to be one steady shot.
Yeah.
And then it's all these venues, and then people get it jars people. So it was a fascinating experience.
I found that fascinating. Like
So
genuinely, when I saw that, and I saw that you had added B-roll, usually outside of either the club or the land of a local landmark. Which, by the way, and I'm gonna obviously we're gonna plug this at the end, but if you guys haven't subscribed to at the John Hastings, TheJohnHastings on YouTube, you definitely want to do that, and definitely watch the special. Like the special, it's called "The Times They Are a John Hastings."
correct. So, and there's a whole, so the whole plan for 3 specials shot this way was thought of at the Edinburgh Fringe in 2022. I kind of saw where the everything was falling in terms of where show business was going, and that, like, that was a moment where we realized none of the gatekeepers were coming back after COVID, and some drastic stuff needed to be taken. I then went to Toronto to do a week of shows and visit my mom, and Toronto had all these sort of rooms popped up post COVID, and it was this fun kind of nice atmosphere. And I just went, no one will be filming here. No one's filming here right now. They're all going to be filming in New York. And there's all these weird sort of rooms. I think you could do it in this way where you get all the different vibes of comedy. You make it sort of feel like you're following me through a night of stand up. And third, anytime I'd ever filmed something before, it was very tight and unable to be loose because it was 1 or 2 takes. We needed to do the material. That was the safest thing. So I went, if we're filming 7 or 8 shows, I can do crowd work for 45 minutes on one. I can just try riffing on another one. I can do only material on another one. And then we get the best moments and mix them all together and see what goes together well for putting it out as a special, as opposed to being like, this worked live, it'll work well watching it by yourself alone, and going, maybe that doesn't. Let's think about this differently and actually approach it in a different way.
I have always stood by the idea that if I do end up recording a special, because I've sort of receded from performing a lot of stand-up on other shows just because I don't need to get into it. I don't like the way comedy has gone lately, and I'm also an old man yelling at the sun, like old man yells at cloud kind of a thing. But I always wanted to film it in the auditorium of the middle school that I used to teach at.
Oh yeah.
Which is also in my hometown.
Oh yes.
Which I don't even think the population of my hometown could fill that auditorium, for God's sake. So, but I thought that would be like an insanely weird thing to do it. And then I was like, there's no way they would let me do that.
I did a show in my high school auditorium. We did an alumni show for no reason that we then
You're Canadian.
I mean, that's the same as New England. That's the literal same. Everyone.
It absolutely is not. How many fist fights have you gotten into because somebody looked at you slightly weird?
Innumerable. I had to move to England to find out you could wear white shoes, because if you wore white shoes in Canada, someone's coming up and scuffing your shoes to let you know you're not better than me. Like Canada,
well, that's fair.
Like Canada, it's in the same way that all of Massachusetts is the most right-wing version of liberal people you've ever met. Oh, you can marry someone of the same sex, but you better be the same race, is basically the motto of New England.
Yeah. Like I don't have a problem with Puerto Ricans as long as they don't marry my daughter. Yeah.
Correct.
Like
yeah.
There's definitely, I tell that to people all the time. I'm like, Massachusetts is intensely liberal, primarily because we're a union state. Like, and unions are like conservative, Ronald Reagan's the worst thing that's ever happened. So it's more like the enemy of my enemy is my friend scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad I actually retired from teaching when I did, because I left it. Talk about buying low and selling high. I retired in 2012, and I'm from a conservative. I'm from like a red voting spot of Massachusetts.
Masked? Oh
Yeah.
no. Because
So
like,
like, yeah,
oh
I'm in
no.
a red island in a blue state. So like, and I think about it, like when we had some really like hair across their ass parents that were like clearly very conservative and pearl clutchy. Like, why does my kid need to learn about Islam? I'm like, ask the state. That was always my favorite.
I
Yeah.
also assume it was like, and the Ottoman Empire was part of the Triple Alliance, and then the parents are like, why do they know? Why do they know about an Islamic person? And you're like, well, to understand World War I, you have to mention all of the people
Yeah.
that participated.
Dude, it was so funny because what I taught was everything that happened after the fall of Rome up to the Renaissance. Like that was my world history too. That was my job.
You're gonna mention people of the Islamic faith.
So we hit like the spread of Islam. It was like very important,
Yeah.
And they'd come in, they would come in and complain. And they're like, why is my kid learning about Jesus and Christianity? I'm like, that is literally December. Did you not read the syllabus?
Yeah.
Like if you look at the syllabus, which I can print out for you if you never got it, it will tell you that in December we will talk about Christianity and its influence in Europe.
Yeah.
Like, right here, we'll talk about the beliefs of Christianity. Like it's all the same thing. And they would be like, oh, and I'm like, please get out of my life.
I mean, it's almost 18 months ago. I had to explain to someone that Gettysburg did not happen during the American Revolutionary War. And I'm from Canada. And we were in the South. It was amazing.
Here's the problem with the internet.
Gettysburg. If you did, when did you do that?
The internet has granted confidence to the dumbest people in the world. It used to be that confident dumb people died.
Oh yeah, no, we are from different towns. I think the problem only is that the internet has shone a light on confident dumb people. I am from Canada. The amount of confident dumb people there, they don't just, how do you survive the cold, sir? I can't see you wearing a jacket, and yet they're just up there.
Shorts guys.
Exactly.
We love every college, every high school had at least one shorts guy.
For those who don't know what a shorts guy is, it's winter. It is bone chillingly cold, and this asshat is wearing cargo shorts, and you want to cut him at the knee.
It's cargo shorts, or if he is one of the more athletically inclined shorts guys, it's a pair of like NBA gym shorts. Those guys. So for you, Raptors shorts. For me, it would be Celtic shorts.
Yeah, exactly. Raptors shorts. Oh,
and a Marcus Camby jersey. I'm sure that was
in Canada. It would be shorts and then the thickest coat, as if. All right, if I'm hot up here, I'll be fine downstairs. And it's not how that works.
Well, in Massachusetts, coats are gay. That guy thinks coats are gay, and so therefore, he's not going to do it. He will get warm from a nice Dunkin' Donuts extra.
Oh hell yeah! Hell to the yeah! Give me some double T.
Yeah, by the Tim Hortons, as you would call it, I guess.
The way you know you're in Canada, by the way, is you still wear a coat. But if your coat is open, you're straight. If you zip up your coat, that is clearly a sign that same-sex attractiveness is part of your genetic makeup, and it is wild.
Men are not okay, and they have not been for some time. But now they have a voice. And instead of them saying "I'm not okay," they are saying the things that all indicate that they are not okay. John, real quick, I don't know if you know this. Yeah. Our show is actually, it goes up on 2 different dates. It goes up patreon.com/Jeff May on Tuesday, June 18th. And then it's going to go up next Tuesday for all the freeloaders who we love. We also love the patrons a little more, obviously. You know, like
more than people that don't give me money. You
know yeah. If someone comes to your birthday party and they give you a present and then the other person doesn't, you're like, okay, well, I know you can't afford it, but I still do like this person.
Yeah, of course.
So, but beyond that too, I actually have a thing where you can actually produce the show itself. You can be a sponsor, you can produce the show, and you can do that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to read off some thank yous to some people who give me money.
So excited.
And they also get early access to uncensored episodes with bonus content. That's all patrons get that.
Oh my.
So Yeah, I mean, a steal at any price. But we would actually like to give a big shout out. Some of these actually spur conversation. So that's really funny. So shout out to Mr. Billy Beck. A big thank you to the To Be Terror Bunny says the strike may be over, but egg Bob Iger anyway, because them.
Damn right.
I had somebody who works for Disney on the show one time, and I think we had to edit that out. So I apologize to that person, but we don't need people getting fired. Shout out to Bart Fardigan. Shout out to Dan Adamski, world's humblest man. Shout out to Norm from Cheers. You a Cheers fan?
I am a Cheers fan. I find what's happened to George Wendt in the recent years truly depressing because he looked like he died when Cheers went off the air and no one told his body.
Haven't we all?
Yeah, we really have. Here's my question: Cheers or Frasier? I'm a Frasier man over Cheers, but it's close.
Frasier's a better show, but I think the reality of it is you don't get Frasier without Cheers. So Cheers is gonna like
interesting. Cheers
is the parent. It has to be one shade above, or else the other thing doesn't exist.
I do somewhat agree. I'm such a homer for Frasier, not this current iteration. Again, no Niles, no Daphne, no John. That's what I say.
Also, though, I will say I do like Boston references more than I like Seattle. And I like Boston sports references more than I like Seattle wine references. So Cheers regionalized for me.
You're so correct. Cheers is also of a time that doesn't exist anymore. That like it looks like my childhood. It feels like my childhood in that like I was born in 1985. So like the early 90s, like my grandfather would go play cards down by the weird community center. And the caretaker of the church would be in there smoking. There was something about it of that's what like watching Cheers felt like you were peeking in on adults in a way that no other show has ever felt.
Yeah, nostalgia is very good. Like nostalgia is one of those things where like it's the kind of drug that is free, but it's also the kind of drug that can ruin your brain the most.
I totally agree. I also think that people need to, speaking of not knowing, you need to historically contextualize nostalgia. Like people are like, America loves remembering the 50s. And it's like, yeah, the 50s were great. You want to know why? Because America had half the world's wealth and the rest of the world had the other half. And in that 10 years, America spent almost all of it. So it's like, yeah, it was great because you're the only country not bombed. Like,
I see this a lot in 80s nostalgia, primarily with pop culture, with men our age, where they'll see like the new He-Man and they'll be like, "It's not my He-Man." And I'm like, yeah, this has a good script.
Yeah.
Your He-Man was a toy commercial and they didn't care about the script. Like there were professional writers writing the script, but the show was generic looking. The characters were ridiculous. And all it was a toy commercial. Now you're getting stuff that's different to your worldview because all you want to do is live in 1986 because that's the last time you were ever happy and you didn't have to pay taxes or bills. Like people refuse to acknowledge that nostalgia is just the feeling of not having responsibilities.
Yeah. Like it's people like people are always like, oh, I'm never someone who's like, oh, I'd like to go back to, but it's like one of those things where it's like, I have super fond memories of living in Toronto from 2009 to 2012. But that's also because it was like my rent was $400 and I was able to I started being a comedian and it was super fun. And what I don't remember is like having a crippling and intense anxiety disorder. You don't remember all of the self-doubt and negative things. You just remember the like 8 fun times in 3 years.
Dude, when I got my first apartment, have been like 22 or something like that, like my first non-college apartment,
yeah.
Like my first, it was like the one place where all the like divorcees and yuppies would live. It was like one of those higher end, like all my friends wanted to come hang out at my Rosemead. It was Rosemead, which ended up getting hit by a tornado, but that's neither here.
Oh,
Massachusetts, very rare, 2011. But Rosemead, I remember, and I look back, my rent that I was like, oh, I hope I can pull this off, $650 a month.
I lived in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Our rent was $275 all in for 3 people. And then one of my roommates' boyfriends moved in, so our rent went down to, I believe it was $190 or something like that. I remember beggable amount of money.
In college, our one apartment that I lived with 2 of my friends, and one of the bedrooms was essentially just a walk-in closet. And he was like, I'll take that one as long as I only have to pay. And he was like, if my rent is $199. Because like of how, because it was like
Yeah.
college town apartments. And so we were like, okay. And he wasn't spending that much less, but he just like literally, it was like he might as well have been sleeping in a sarcophagus. It was so funny to me that he was that cheap that he's like, yeah, that's fine as long as.
I lived in a sunroom and I didn't care. The rent was like, people always are like, because I was able to go pro as a comedian really quickly. I did it within sort of 4 years, but really
Wow.
3 years. And here's how you do it. It's not hard. Just be poor.
That is fair.
That's all you do. Like people do not understand. I was in my early 20s. Wasn't it hard? No. I could walk. You walk everywhere. You look great, and who cares? Like you're not. No. Like I just never. I was also. I am from. You're from. I assume the suburban Massachusetts.
I'm from rural Massachusetts.
Oh, see. So did you have a lot of people like settling down out of high school? Like they were like, well, that was the fun time. Time to be serious. And I knew right there, I'm like, that is countdown to either being a fascist or having a coke problem in your 30s. So I go to the big city.
Let me tell you a couple things, two things. One, love seeing those people on Facebook because I'm not afraid of them. And some of the things they say, and I'm like, hey, you're kind of a huge piece of shit. And boy, do they not like that. But on top of that, too, I taught in my hometown. Not only did I teach in my hometown, the middle school that I taught at did not exist when I was that age. It was being built. The land that it was being built on used to belong to my grandfather. So it was our backyard. So I not only taught in my hometown, I taught in my literal backyard. I used to stack wood there because we grew up on a farm. After 30, I was like, oh, I'm living in like a Stephen King Outer Limits Twilight Zone life where like a town won't let me leave, even though I've like accomplished a bunch of things. I'm still not allowed to leave. And so at that point in time, I was like, all right, well, I got to get the hell out of here and move as far away as possible. That's the only reason I'm in LA is it was the city that was as far away from Charlton, Massachusetts as possible.
Interesting. LA is the people who live in LA is exactly that reason or my reason, which is like, I wanted a city and this weather is amazing. And I was always drawn to the LA version of America more than the New York version of America.
I realized if I failed in New York, I could go home.
Oh, yeah.
That was it. I was a 3-hour drive away. If I failed in New York, I could just pack my bags and move. Out here, I burned the boats, man. I was like, fuck, man, if you fail, you're homeless.
You're so true. You're so right. The other advantage to failure in LA is I've gotten a lot of rejection in the UK, and that's hard because you walk out and you feel like and you're demoralized and it's raining and it's cold. Like LA is faceless and businesslike in every way, but you're like, oh, that was annoying. Oh, yeah, it's 70 again. Perfect. Yeah. This is good. This is good.
Also, shout out to Dan Hackroyd. Big thanks. Shout out to Normal Man, Andrew McGuire. Shout out to check out this month's Nerd with Dre and Jeff, where we're going to be covering the Masters of the Universe 2000X toy reboot line. Were you ever a He-Man kid or
a huge He-Man kid? Specifically, I was a huge He-Man fan of the He-Man that came out in the late 80s, early 90s, the future, the space He-Man?
The New Adventures of He-Man, yeah.
That was my jam. Because I always felt I know, I was 5.
Yeah.
That Skeletor looked like a scary Skeletor. That Skeletor figure.
It had them glowing eyes.
He's like a doll. This other one was like, this guy looks like it should not. I was 5. They're like, here's a decaying corpse. And it was, but like that. Oh no, my jam. I love, and also the Dolph Lundgren Masters of the Universe. I'm going to say this. I think that's an unsung classic. Doesn't quite hold up, but real good.
If you're ever interested in seeing a very cool prop from that film, head on down to Magnolia Boulevard in Burbank, California, right near Blast from the Past, and go to It's a Wrap, which is a consignment, or it's a more of a thrift store, but only from movie and television wardrobe.
Oh my God.
Are you not aware of this place?
I'm not aware of this place.
It's a Wrap is whenever people go to LA and they're like, we want to do something Hollywoody. I'm like, go to It's a Wrap. You will walk out of there with a shirt that was worn on some television show or whatever. But they have a mannequin wearing one of the like stormtroopers from the He-Man Masters of the Universe film at the top of their stairs, and you can go take a photo with it.
Oh, I'm gonna go do that today.
So good.
Again, also here's another LA thing that no one if you're a showbiz person, you like showbiz, you like culture, you're a latchkey raised by TV person. LA is so your vibe because it looks familiar to you because it was where all of those weird shows you watched
Mhm.
that were filmed in the 70s were made. So it's really, really pleasing. And B, you can't do LA stuff anywhere but LA. Like in New York, yeah, you can go to like a cool bar and see a poet. You can do that in London, you can do that in Rome. But like nowhere can you be like, look, there's a warehouse. It's run by a guy who, let's be frank, he's a heroin addict. He's also got a bunch of saxophones that were used by the wrecking crew. And if you give him a sandwich, you can play them. And you're like, all right, let's go.
Yeah,
Like
let's
that's
do that. I
yeah.
remember walking out of House of Secrets, which is my local comic shop, and like I realized I was like, oh, that's the Safari Inn from True Romance, like right around the corner. Like it's right across the street. I'm like, I know that sign.
I was watching Usual Suspects in the pandemic, and I realized that the scene where they rob the cops was shot in front of the apartment I was sat in. Like I literally looked out the window and I was like, that was happening right there. And I was
Wow.
like, I love it. It's
I
just
live near the Cobra Kai studio
fuck yeah.
in
See,
on Lancashire. Yeah, like that's a very Hollywood thing. That's a very
also I'm a rock and roll, like I grew up as a in punk rock and heavy metal in suburban Ottawa, so like Motorhead, all of that sort of like music, Guns N' Roses, all of that was like the Sunset Strip to me is like was cool. Like people are like, oh, Sunset Strip, it's so lame, and I'm like, hey man,
sucks now. Yeah.
it does suck now, but like I will give you this: if you want to see, if you want to go to the greatest rock bar in the world, the Rainbow Bar and Grill, if you like a rock bar, is phenomenal and pretty good Italian food, which is another thing that I just, why wouldn't you? Oh, we're known for metal bands and a bolognese.
I remember. So here's a very LA story that you might not be privy to because it's a very unique thing. But did you ever go to the Mouthy Pants open mic or the Killer Mike open mic at the other door in on
before,
Burbank Boulevard?
before my time.
Okay.
Oh no, I think I did I definitely have played them open mic at the other
At the
door.
other door. Okay. That's where Guns N' Roses the reunification started because that's like the bar that Andrew Dice Clay would hang out with. I think it was like Duff McKagan, like somebody that was like a part of that. And basically like I remember watching an interview with Andrew Dice Clay talking about like how he's responsible for their reunification because he basically they were hanging out at the other door and he was lambasting him like what the is wrong with you guys? And he was like you guys can't get anything done. He's like, how hard would it be for you guys to get together, do the songs you've done a million times, and make more money than you've ever made in your lives? And so it's like, oh, that's where I do comedy every Tuesday night.
Yeah, that is. Oh, I love that. Such a great, just also weird. Like I got dropped by my manager. I was very sad, and I'm just driving down a nameless street, and then I let a Prius go. And who's driving the Prius but Danny DeVito? Danny DeVito, by the way, gave me a thank you wave, and I just yelled, Danny DeVito!
If you are visiting California, Southern California, and you want to see celebrities, do not go to Hollywood Boulevard.
We'll see.
You will not. You will see in celebrity impersonators, but that's not the place to go. I always tell people, I'm like, go to a comedy show. You're going to get one famous comedian. Like someone's going to drop in.
Yep.
Yeah. Also, hey, thank you. I forgot we're doing producers right now because we're just getting so much
I like
good
it. I like
here.
it. I think this is better for them because they, you know what? They're not, am I going to hear my name? Well, we'll see.
Well, Dre, my co-host on Nerd, who was the last producer, also runs my YouTube, and he is my savior. He's the best. Shout out to Watch Me use these prehensile nipples to pick up pennies off the floor. That's not the only nipple talk we're going to have in these producer notes. So you can save the face for when the second one comes. Shout out to the Oatmeal Savage. You an oatmeal guy?
Yeah, I forget it. Oatmeal is one of those things where every time I eat it, I'm like, this is good. But you never are like, oatmeal today.
Yeah, you never you have to be on a specific diet that involves oatmeal for you to plan for oatmeal, I guess.
Or be in Scotland.
That's fair. Which you've got your own problems then at that point.
You certainly, yeah. You drank too much.
Shout out to Call Me Sean or whatever. Shout out to the Enchanted Wandering Unpierced Left Nipple Cider served at room temperature. Why don't you ruminate on that one for a second, John?
I mean, whoever that is, they know that they did that, and that is something.
Not only do I know who that is, but they actually drove, I think, like 3 or 4 hours to Mint on Card one time to see it. Talk about a compliment.
That is something.
And they didn't even get to see you on that show.
Come on.
Shout out to mashed potatoes or the brioche buns of side dishes.
Correct.
I I think they're two very overrated items that get. I think they're overrated. I think they're overrated. I don't necessarily think they're bad, although I think brioche buns are bad for hamburgers. I think they're the biggest mistake that you could have. Brioche buns are not meant to handle grease.
Here's the problem. You're totally right, but here's the actual issue is where the smash burger has made everyone think that I want that greasy, crisp, intense burger. That's only I want for certain burgers. Sometimes I want a self-contained, small, jam it in my head, do something else with my day life.
It's a potato bun burger then. Potato bun. The potato bun will bite into.
But the potato bun for both hot dogs and hamburgers, fantastic. Your point is already made. Continue, but you've done such a great job.
Okay. And I think mashed potatoes aren't bringing anything to the table that stuffing isn't doing better. That's all I'm saying.
That's in the mashed potato you're having. You've just lived a sheltered life. You need to up your mashed potato game.
No, I don't. I've had them with all the items in it.
That's the problem. I don't stop. America thinks everything will be improved by like, you know what this needs? More things that are not. Just yeah.
Do you think I went from like taking a potato, mashing it and eating a boiled potato, mashing it and eating it? Do you think I went from there all the way to like this one has garlic and chives and cheddar and bacon in it? No, I've tried it all.
Sir, you literally just moments admitted that and this is the craziest thing, you taught in a middle school that your family built in your yard. Who knows what you get up to?
I get up to a lot of stuff.
That's quite a nepo baby origin story. You want to know how bad my family has my back? I became a teacher. My grandfather built a school.
Boy, would that have been nice if I had gotten my career by any way of support from my family.
Yeah, no, I assume it was the state took the land off of his hands, and he's never stopped drinking.
He sold it to the town. My grandfather was smart. He knew he was a farmer for a long time until he realized he actually makes more money with less overhead by like just owning the land and renting it out to other farmers that don't have room for their livestock. And he had like a gravel pit, which made him like a ton. My grandfather was really good at making money, which is funny because he was like a simple man born in 1920. You know, like, it's so wild to me that my grandfather was this like money making genius. Didn't benefit me at all.
Also, I think that what we sometimes don't understand is not knowing failure, not knowing something is a freedom in and of itself, where it's just like, yeah, it's just you do it. My grandfather smoked until the day he died at 86. And he was someone that went, I don't believe these people think it gives you anything. And I think that that's what saved him, where he literally was like, yeah, and I cough in a way that makes animals run away. It's not the smoking. It's
I lived for one semester. I went to Westfield State College and I lived with some older relatives. I lived with my grandfather's brother. My grandmother's brother, Uncle Lloyd. I loved him. He was so funny. He would smoke Pall Mall unfiltered cigarettes. He did his whole life. He had cartons of them in the freezer, which fitting. I would hear him every night hacking up a lung.
Oh yeah.
He didn't even sleep in the same room with his wife, which I support. And I would hear him while I was trying to sleep. I'd hear him hacking. I was like, please don't die while I'm here. Please don't die while I'm here. Like, and I went back to my old college and like within a month he died after I left. And I was like, thank God. Because I did not want to have to deal with a corpse. Like I knew it was coming. He was like in his 80s, still smoking on Pall Mall unfiltered, hacking up a lung. I was like, this man is going to die so soon.
It is like, if you don't understand how hard the world was 30 years ago, look, like I'm 38. I don't know, but look at what a 38-year-old looked like 10 or 15 years ago and now. And you're like, man, a little moisturizing and just drinking water goes a long way, doesn't it?
Everybody I graduated, well, all the men I graduated with look 5 to 10 years older than me. Like, you guys know you can put lotion on. It won't be gay.
Yeah, no, it's also just what you also just realize about so many old people is like, yeah, you just got, if you move, this is another big advantage of LA, by the way, is LA is a place where you got to move. You got to get out there. You're hiking because all the LA benefits, if you aren't an active person, you should be in another city. Cause like the LA benefit is like in 5 minutes, you could be in a wooded area you could hide a body in or be killed by a coyote somehow. We don't know why we built the city this way. So you got to use it or you're a fuel.
I fully agree with you.
See, he gets it.
Lotion. Everybody, gentlemen especially, moisturize your face.
Yeah, come
Just
on.
put lotion on your face, and you could do your whole body, and that would be great. It would be really good for you to do that, and also sunblock. But for the most part, like, just moisturize your face.
Black
Not too
people
late.
are not magic. They are just
Yeah.
moisturizing from a very early age. It's not rocket. It's a Bill Burr bit. It's one of the best Bill Burr bits, but it's so true. It's just they just use lotion.
Yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, the these girl sparks coming down when she ran
Actually,
the nails down. Yeah. Why do you think your looks so shiny and new?
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Covering it in lotion. Yeah. Perfect joke. Shout out to, I'm going to start calling Yoda Old Grogu just to see what happens. Shout out to the ghost of Dave Thomas.
Oh,
Yeah. What's your favorite fast food?
I got to go in and out like a real hack. I'm not a fast food guy. Is the problem?
Really?
I used to be really fat, and then I just didn't eat fast food for almost a
Thanks.
decade. See, hell yeah. And then here's the thing: if you don't eat fast food for a super long time, and I lived in England where the main fast food is Burger King, so go to hell.
Well, that's just the monarchy right there.
Yeah, right there.
Monarch privilege.
Of course, yeah. I'm a king. He's a king. So yeah, no, it's in and out. But yeah, no, I'm not a fast food guy.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, In and Out.
I guess
If you're not a fast food guy, I guess that's the one to go to because it's the closest. Well, yeah. I like Burger King, if I'm being honest.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
I've thrown up twice from Burger King.
Well, that just means you're weak.
Yeah, both. One of them I was brutally hungover, and I always tell the story in my head of like, oh, it was the Burger King, and I was like, I do not think it was the Burger King. Like, I think it was you.
The reality is, it was a thing that went into your stomach.
Yeah,
it was
definitely all the booze.
Yeah. As a reminder that this show is brought to you by the scene in Lost City where Brad Pitt dies. And of course, a big shout out to Aldo Vargas is adding Jeff Has Cool Friends producer to his resume. Do it.
Oh yeah.
And you can put me down as your contact. You can put Jeff Has Cool Friends producer, all of you, for those names that I just read. Put that on your resume. I will vouch hard.
Have you ever been honest when writing down landlord recommendations on a rental application?
You know how I get around that?
Go ahead.
I don't live in corporate buildings.
Yeah, you live in a place that's a guy.
I'm in a house with my roommate who owns the house, and she just needed a dude to live here, and I needed a house.
Yeah.
I literally got this apartment that I live in. I live in my house because of Nextdoor. Where my last apartment that I got on Craigslist, and I was the only person who wasn't a serial killer. He got his girlfriend pregnant, and so he's like, "Hey man, you got to move.
Yeah,
got to turn this into a nursery." I'm like, "But why don't you move?" He's like, "That's not how this works. Get out of here." And I was like, "That's fair." You know what? I don't know what I was thinking. So I posted on Nextdoor. I was like, "Hey, real quick, I live in this neighborhood and I like it. Here is my budget. I work during the day mostly. I'm gone at night mostly. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. I'm going to be out of your way. I'm also a big, strong man with a fighting background if that is something that you need." And she was like, my roommate was like, "That is literally what I need right now." Funny. So perfect.
This is a roommate trick. This is an apartment hunting trick that has worked everywhere I have lived. This is from comedian Steph Tolev. Check the newspaper. The newspaper still has classifieds for apartments, and the people that are still using the newspaper are old, so the apartment will probably be rent controlled and so cheap, and that works every damn time.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a real, oh my god, hacks. There was a real period of time where hacks were like a real like, oh my god, this actually works, and now it just turns out to be AI and doesn't work, and that's a real classic one. That one's a banger. But yeah,
I mean, that's it. Anyway, shout out to all those producers. Head on over to Jeff Has Cool Friends, patreon.com/JeffMay, where you can get not only early access to uncensored episodes with bonus content, but you can produce the show. I also have tiers where you can get stuff in the mail. We send out packages to people. It's very fun, very exciting. Everyone gets very excited about it.
I have
trading card packages. It's really fun.
I have a Grogu question for you from the producer name.
Sure.
Did you feel, I have never liked anything in the Star Wars universe less than finding out Baby Yoda's name. I was like, I don't need to know this. Why the do I need? This is unnecessary. I don't care about this at all.
Okay, so I used to work for a very big toy and statue company, and we had an inter-office memo to all of the on-camera and on-mic professionals that basically stated we could not say Baby Yoda, and if we did, we would be released.
Really?
Yes. Primarily, it was, I guess, because that was a thing from Disney, is they were like, you know, you have our license. You cannot propagate this incorrect name of our universe, which is fair. Like, it's not Yoda, you know, like Grogu, the character is not Yoda. We were only allowed to call it the asset or the child.
Oh, it was in that period of time where it was either the asset or I remember that was the child. Yeah.
And then when it was revealed that it was Grogu, we were all like, I feel like I should just call it the child.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't give a shit.
Or the like what's also the thing is call it the kid. Like he calls it the kid. I didn't, by the way, I haven't even gotten to the episode where they call it Grogu yet, but I was just like, I'm not.
Like season 2, right?
Yeah, like it's the problem was I was at post end game, I got really burnt out on all of like any sort of sci-fi. Like I was just like, guys, we did it. My entire life I was like, can we just do one comic book movie series sort of good that doesn't make me feel like an ass for caring about any of this stuff? They did it with the first sort of phase of doing the cinematic version of the Infinity Gauntlet saga.
The Infinity Saga, that from Iron Man up to Endgame. Yeah, perfect.
End it. Shut her down. We don't need. And so anything I sort of saw after that, I was kind of like, we're good.
I'll get to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we did, like Rogue One was fun, but I didn't need
Rogue One, yeah.
I didn't need anything else. Rogue One was like, I never understood whether like we need to do more of this trilogy. And I was like, no, do. You know
what's fun though? Solo's fun.
Is that true? I couldn't.
Yes. Solo is it's probably the most fun Star Wars movie. That is not to say that it is the best Star Wars movie, but it is by far and away the most fun.
Here's my problem is I read all of, the whole Star Wars Legends series, all those books and stuff.
Oh, yeah. You're reading the Zons and the Kathy Tears and all that stuff.
Love them. And they did a Han Solo trilogy of novels that I read as a young teenager. I, to this day, think are the best. It is the best version of those sort of origin stories because going
Dengar in one of those books, if I recall, right?
Oh yeah, there's a whole like
a lot of race.
Yeah, you get so much Hutt stuff. Like they go way deep into the politics and like the biology of the Hutts and like what Jabba actually is and what his deal is. You get like the whole thing of like why Han does like thinks the Jedis are annoying, and he like they contextualize the Empire so much more. So I was like, as soon as I saw that, and the opening line is like, "My name's Han. You're by yourself. You're solo." I was like, turning it off. Go yourself. You. We're not doing. He's a spider and a man. He's Spider-Man.
I actually, the Solo thing doesn't necessarily bother me, and primarily because the way I see it is that I think that was created, and I can't speak for the creators or Ron Howard or the writers or anything like that, but like it seems to me that that's somebody who is owning what was given to him and turning it into something successful, like taking an insult and turning it around and saying the insult means nothing to me. I am going to do this. I don't need that, but I don't hate it the way a lot of other people did.
The thing that I come down, and I totally hear what you're saying, is I find a lot of times, and get ready for this wanky statement, I think a lot of times, especially in those types of movies, because there's so much of an audience that will just pick apart everything, that like sometimes they forget it's still got to be a fun genre movie in this genre.
Oh, it's very fun.
All right,
I'll tell you that it is fun. Because also, if you're an old Star Wars nerd like me,
that's the thing.
There is a reference that we will get that is very exciting.
I will watch that.
Something in the history of Star Wars that is considered bad, but I love that it's brought up, and I popped.
It's Who Shot the Gun, isn't it?
No,
really?
No, it's a reference that you would never guess exists. It's such a weird. It's fan service, but it's fan service in a way that's actually something that most fans hate, which I think is very funny.
Speaking of, did you give for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, there was a whole re-editing of Star Wars to have it so what's his face shot first, and Han
Greedo shot first. Yeah.
like Greedo shot first. And I never understood that, where it's like no one watching Star Wars was like, man, that Han Solo's a real jerk for shooting that Greedo. Like, it was like the guy had a gun on him and he looked like a weird, scary thing. Everyone who watched that be like, yeah, shoot it, it's scary.
Yeah, I mean, that's George Lucas being like, I think he needs to be more of a hero. He shouldn't be a murderer. And that's because George Lucas is really bad at second guessing himself, and he's even worse about having people around him to tell him things are bad ideas.
That's so funny you said that. Someone, and by someone, I mean it was someone who worked on Star Wars, which is like, George Lucas is at his best when he says his first idea to Francis Ford Coppola, and then Francis Ford Coppola does not let him keep talking. Like, it's
Right?
like,
Yeah.
and it's the same. If you want, by the way, the whole story of Star Wars is, it's a triumph of editing. The first Star Wars is literally, thank God George Lucas was married to an editor.
Yeah. Thank God Marsha came in and formed a correct film.
There is so many things that just, the whole reason why Obi-Wan is away from them and for all that sort of stuff is that wasn't in the script. They just concocted all this sort of stuff and threw it together. And it's like, yeah, it's so amazing. It's also that thing of like, you fret about everything being perfect. And sometimes it's like, sometimes you just save it at the last minute, man. Like, something doesn't have to be good. Has to be good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The loss of Gary Kurtz and Richard Marquand, and like, there's a lot of really important people. Ivan Kershner is another example of people that were like willing to tell George Lucas no.
Yeah.
And George Lucas is good at like, I can create this world. And then it's just like, yeah, but like, don't write the words.
Yeah, no,
What are you doing, man?
Like, I mean,
episode 1 is so bad.
Yeah. Like, one of the most impactful, amazing moments I'm way more of a Han Solo guy than I am a Luke Skywalker guy when it comes to Star Wars, which no one acknowledges. And so, like, for me, the scene that's badass is, I love you, I know. And here's what everyone needs to know. That was written because Harrison Ford was at that point so off with George Lucas's bad writing. And he was like,
I thought I would talk.
I'm not saying that. He wouldn't say I love you. And I think I'm like, by the way, yeah, he would. Yeah, he would. But I know that Harrison Ford's like, you, I'm not doing this. Like,
he's like, also, I'm not signing my contract for the third movie, so maybe I'll die while I'm in this carbonite.
Is that true? Is that a confirmed thing? I never knew because I heard that that's why.
Yeah.
Here's the other one. This is the best. You only get these stories living in London. All those movies filmed in London. And Harrison Ford loves weed. And you know that because of every interview he's ever given.
Oh, yeah.
And it really frustrated the shit out of George Lucas. He didn't like, because he would just show up baked off of his ass every day.
Well, there's one scene in Empire where he and Carrie are still drunk after hanging out with like the Beatles.
I'm sure.
Like, it was like hanging out with like George Harrison or somebody like the night before that was like, they wanted to hang out and they were still drunk when they were filming it. And like those cuts made it into the film.
I mean,
I'm not on Bespin, yeah.
I'm not surprised because George Lucas confiscated his rolling papers. He stole Harrison Ford's rolling papers because he would smoke weed driving from the Savoy to Pinewood. And he was like, I'll give me your rolling papers. And it was hard to find rolling papers. So what Harrison Ford did was he cooked the weed in a pot and it filled it with smoke and brought the pot into the car and then just lifted the lid and then
bong, like a British bong.
And showed up, and like George Lucas was like, what the nah, and like was so angry that he kept doing it. But apparently Harrison Ford was like, I'm better when I'm stoned, man. And you're like, yeah, he is. Like, you can't. Yeah, he is. He like, I'm not for any of those thoughts, but it's like that performance rules.
So my friend Duncan from Blast from the Past, I don't know if he's a British guy, and his dad was one of the puppeteers on Star Wars. And he was discovered, or not in the first Star Wars, but he was discovered by Mark Hamill at the puppet shop that he worked at when they were doing a screening of Star Wars in, like, because back before home video,
yeah, you had to
make money by just going on tour.
Yeah.
So Hamill was sent to pick up the like puppet as like a surprise for the person there, and they were talking, and he's like, oh, like, check it out, like, smart. And then he like kind of was like, oh, and then he ended up being like a Yoda puppeteer, and he was like one of the arms of Jabba, and he was Aughra from the Dark Crystal.
I may have worked with that guy. I did a commercial in the UK when I lived there for Motorola that was a digital puppet, and they had three puppeteers. One of them was an old English guy.
Could be because
Could be. The one thing with Star Wars puppeteers was there was a bunch of them, but he was also a Star Wars puppeteer, all of that sort of stuff. I can't remember how he did it. Here's the one thing is he had his nose replaced because of cancer. Had your friend's dad had his nose?
no, and also he lives here. His dad lives here, so
that's the way to do it. That's the nice thing about that is I knew we were going to get to the bottom of that in a second because you never forget the fact that someone had their nose replaced.
yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, he was the so apparently it was the people eater from Furiosa from Mad Max.
Oh,
Guy with the nose, silver nose.
Oh yeah. What did you think of
Loved it.
Fury Road? I love
Fury Road. Fury Road. Fury
Yeah.
Road is like one of my favorite movies.
Here's what I thought though watching that is I never needed anything else from that. Like this is the other problem I have a lot with current culture with the Furiosa movie. And I think a lot of people like me is like, I don't need more of this. I have this. This is perfect. Don't touch. It's like how they're like keep being like, we should reboot Escape from New York. And I want to be like, you can't.
But here's the thing. George Miller made Furiosa. So yes, he can. And not only that, but George Miller is everything George Lucas wishes he was.
Completely listen. I love all of the Mad Max. Like I love it all. I love that it's George Miller. I love that he's coming back in his old age where he's like, I got CGI, and guess what?
I ain't using it.
I don't care. We're gonna do it practically, and we're still shooting in Australia, even though we could shoot somewhere else. But you, and it's just like, yeah, go on, man.
The like Furiosa, because the whole thing is he was building up this tapestry of like the history of the wasteland, which they never went through, but he apparently always wanted to do that. It's just he was too busy making like Babe 2, which is also amazing.
And Babe, didn't he also make?
Yeah, I don't think George Miller's made a bad movie, which is wild to me. Furiosa bombing is one of those things where I'm just like, I'm a little offended at it bombing.
Well, but it's a different circumstance. The thing, like, people are like, every movie's going to go bomb now, guys, because the metrics of how all of this is measured have completely changed. Like,
Streaming was a huge mistake. Yeah,
yeah, like it's one of those things where it's all different and changed, and then COVID is still it. They haven't figured it out. And by the way, this has happened before to movies. The 10 years that they had television and movies together, anyone who made movies wouldn't have a TV in their house because it was killing movies.
Yeah,
and this is how stupid humans are. It took them a decade, 10 full years before someone went, why don't we show the movies on the television?
On TV.
They'll pay us. 10 years. I guarantee that guy thought, I guarantee someone said that 20 minutes after being explained what the television is, and it took him 10 years to convince 3 idiots to do it.
My first Star Wars experience is a VHS off of like ABC of Empire Strikes Back.
My mom said to me,
commercials.
I remember her saying, hey, they're showing this thing called Star Wars on Friday. I think you're going to really like it. And it was but that's it. It was someone said it to you, even though this was VHS, but it was just like, oh, this is on at this time. And I watched a bit of it. Also, my mom edited it for length and stuff like that. I for the longest time did not know they went back and destroyed the Death Star.
Length.
So, because I was 3 or 4. So what would happen is they would, the first time they fly out of the Death Star,
yeah,
they escape. That's where I thought that's where Star Wars 1 ended for like 3 years. And then for Christmas, I got the trilogy on VHS and then like put it on and it kept going. And I was like, what in the name
that
of
is unhinged.
This?
That's unhinged.
Like, and like a bunch of things. The Tauntaun worm thing when I was a kid, just not there. Yeah, like that whole, like it just the
Hoth scene.
Empire Strikes Back for me started with Luke getting the lightsaber out and frigging up the snow monster and heading back to Hoth. And by the way, you don't need that big. By the way, I stand by that being a much better beginning. Where no content, just Luke just immediately effing up a snow monster. Yeah, all right, I'm in for it.
Slicing the arm off of a Wampa. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. I love every ounce of that. I love how unhinged it was to do that because like kids will just watch a movie anyway. Like it's just such a wonderfully and beautifully insane thing to edit it like she's a network exec being like, we need to bring this down. Edit it for time.
so crazy is like it was a time when like people were so like kids cannot watch TV, and I was like even then just sort of like I want to watch
Yeah,
the
is what I'm.
like it was just like all right, well the movie's over now, you can't watch it, and it's like
I just realized I'm wearing a Jack Porkins shirt. I'm
I
wearing a Death Star assault shirt, which you didn't even get to see.
I noticed it off the top. I was just like, yeah, this bro reps. Also, great
Yes.
Star Wars merch, by the way. He is my favorite death in all of Star Wars because his stupid ship explodes from like right in front of his head.
He's like, I got it.
And he makes such a he goes, oh, like, and
I mean, because even though it seems like there's a lot of sparks and a lot of explosions within that cockpit, so this
yeah,
guy probably like,
yeah, like it doesn't really feel like they were like, George, what the hell, man? I just
and then he died in Batman.
it is the same guy. It's
Yeah,
what I love.
it's Eckhard in Batman. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, think about what
Hey,
again.
Eckhard,
Yeah,
think about the future.
sure.
There's a
No,
great video somebody made where that happens, and then as soon as he says it, and it goes to Eckhard, and it like starts panning out, and it like takes this very long travel all the way to like the Death Star fight. So it leaves Gotham to Earth, and it like leaves the Milky Way, and it finally ends up with him blowing up in Red Six, and then getting shot by Jack.
I don't think that Tim Burton Batman is good, but I also love it in that weird way of like, I'm a big Batman guy. It breaks every Batman rule there is.
He's a serial killer.
Yeah, he just murders a bunch of people, has no remorse. See, like it's just like no, Joker did not kill Batman's parents. That's not how the world works. But so enjoyable, only for Jack Nicholson, by the way. Like Jack Nicholson damn makes that movie until he's fully murdered by
I
the hero.
I mean, the problems I have different problems. My problems are basically that like Batman is an absolute serial killer. I love it's very operatic. I love the designs of it. I think the acting is all very good. Even Robert Wuhl, I find to be like a very interesting character.
Such a great addition. Also, such a weird thing of there was this weird obsession that I love that like no one will explain, but there's a lot of movies in the 80s where it's just like for some reason, like directors at that time were like newspaper men are the real moral center of towns. And it's like, this is a guy who's smoking. I know journalists. They're drunks. Like they're not helping a parade.
Woodward and Bernstein did a lot of really good work for the PR of the integrity of the newspaper man. But also like we're also looking at that now with those rose-colored rear view glasses of being like, well, half of the journalists now are lying.
Can I just say who one of the biggest pieces of garbage in journalism is Bob Woodward? Never forget, had a tape where Trump literally said, it's airborne, it's contagious, everyone's going to get it, we're in real trouble.
And he saved it for his book.
He saved it for a year and 3 months later because it quote unquote was not verified. And I have two friends that work in journalism, and I said, if you hear the person say it and record it, do you need to get it verified? And the person went, no, that's verification. The person said it. If the person who is the president said it, the president's verifying it. And I was like, yeah, that's what I thought.
Could have been James Austin Johnson.
Could have been, but that was before he got that job.
Well, I mean, he was doing those videos. That's how he got the job.
I don't think wasn't he doing those videos by the midsummer? This was February 2020. Come on.
Nobody knows.
That's true. Maybe
it's a mystery for the ages, and there's no way we can check on that.
James Austin Johnson.
Hey, you know what's funny is that we took such a weird side wars, if we want to talk about, which is really fun, but also like people, I'm sure they enjoy conversation like this, but I also do kind of want to talk more about you before we get moving, because we've already extended the podcast a little bit. Plus, we've got bonus content coming to every member of the patreon.com/Jeff May. So I wanted to, and we'll talk about, there's two things in your bio that I want to talk about, and I will talk about on that.
Let's do it.
But no, that'll be on the content.
Great.
For now, I want to tell everybody that they need to check out @the John Hastings on social media as well as YouTube.
Please do.
I need you guys to watch that video.
Watch the video. Get at it anyway. Go to my Instagram. All the link is there. Please watch it. There's going to be another one out on September 15th, another one out on December 15th. So it's very important you do subscribe or find me on any social media you like. They're all different material, all shot weird and unique. So it's fun to watch. And by the way, if you've gone, I'm not a stand-up person, but you've liked me on this show, put it on and mute it for 3 minutes. I get the view. And it is so important right now.
we talk about this a lot because like I've had to restart a YouTube page for the cards because guest of the show Ken Knapsack reminded me that if I'm putting out podcasts and card breaking videos on a YouTube, I'm actually not doubling my possibilities, but I'm actually having my
Mm.
possibility for subscribers. So I had to start a new card breaking account, and I got to tell you, it's hard
Yeah.
to rebuild that back up, but the free stuff that you guys can do is insane. So definitely go to at the John Hastings, subscribe. I mean, you're not putting up a ton of videos all the time, right? Like
On YouTube, I'm putting up, there'll be 2 short things a week,
yeah,
and that's it. And there's
yeah.
shorts, but and it's the same shorts you would see on any other social media. And unless you click on shorts, you won't see them.
You can click the like button, the thumbs up button on the video. You can post a comment. All these free things do immensely big things for us. Like it's so hard to explain because if you're not in this world, it doesn't make sense.
So here's how I've been saying it to people. Most of the big comedians are spending between $1,000 and $10,000 on ads, bots, and pushing your attention towards those videos. I have none of that money, and they're spending that amount of money to get a bunch of people to hit the like, subscribe, or comment. And all I'm asking is if some of you do that here for free, way more cost effective and organic and interesting. And oh, by the way, if you don't like the special, don't worry about it and move on. Like we have gotten to this place where everyone has to like everything. I am aware I'm not for everyone. I shout and swear a bit too much, but I like being loud, and swearing, like anything to do with poo, is good.
I agree.
See, he gets
I
it.
agree with that 1,000%.
I still do like it. I know that we live in a world of reels, and it's when we can get way into all of that sort of stuff. I've been a comedian for 18 years, and this is the first time where comedians as an individual have agency over our stuff, in that, like, to be able to, for me to convince a person who had a production company to let me shoot 9 sets, and we'd only use 3 of the venues for the first one, and it would take us forever to cut everything, they would say no. But because it's just me, I get to do it. The one difference is there's no money to that. I just have to make it and pay for it with my meager stand-up comedy earnings and put it out. So give us a hand, you.
The free stuff. Do the free stuff. Which, while I have that, of course, I did say follow John, watch the special, do all that stuff. John, you also have a tour. You're filming your like people in Ontario can go to your next taping. It's going to be like right after we release this, right?
I'm filming June 21st, 22nd, 28th, 29th at the Ottawa Yuck Yucks at Biagio's. Biagio's is the old Peter Pan. Peter Pan is the restaurant where everyone in my childhood was taken when their parents told them they were getting divorced.
Noted.
And so anyone in Ottawa literally just went, oh, that place reopened. And so please come along. Our good, very fun. Pop along.
Check that out, you Canadians. I know 2 of you are Canadians because I mail you packages. So that's very big. Now, if you want to hear more from me, if somehow this is the first time you've ever been here, I've got great news. I have Tom and Jeff Watch Batman on the Gamefully Unemployed Patreon. I also do all the stuff with Adam Todd Brown on the You Don't Even Like Podcasts Network. You can also see me do card breaks on the at Jeff Has Cool Cards YouTube account. That's a new one. It used to be at Hey There Jeffro. That's the comedy one. That's the me as a person. At Jeff Has Cool Cards. That's the card one. So come check that out. Now, on top of that, you can also, if you're listening to this for free, thank you. I really appreciate you. I will appreciate you just a little bit more if you head on over to patreon.com/JeffMay, because things are expensive and life is hard.
Correct.
Support people. Be nice. Be kind. John,
Jeff,
we're going to say goodbye to the freeloaders.
See you in hell.
Then we're going to take a couple hours off, and then we're going to come back and we're going to do some Patreon exclusive material. How's that sound?
Sound great.
All right. Well, say goodbye to the freeloaders.
Bye, freeloaders.
Hey, bye, everybody. We love you. Bye. Hey, everyone. Our artwork is created by Justin T. Brown, who can be found at Artness by Justin Brown on Instagram, as well as artnessbyjustinbrown.com. That dope music you heard is by Troy Nababon, available at Troy Nababon on Instagram, as well as at troynababon.com. Nababon is spelled N-A